Happy September 20th, everybody. You know what that means. Today is the Area 51 raid. But as you can see, I myself am not participating. I'm all for finding out what secrets the government's hiding out there in the desert, but instead of getting shot for trespassing on government property, I decided to play a game where we get to see what dark secrets the government's hiding. Area 51 for PlayStation 2. Released in 2005, Area 51 is quite interesting. This game is a remake of a port of an arcade game, if that makes any kind of sense. The arcade games, Area 51 and Area 51 Site 4, were published by Atari, and the home console variants for PlayStation, PC, and Sega Saturn were published by Midway. And the 2005 version is a reimagining of the original, released on PS2, Xbox, and PC. While both the arcade and the PS1 variants were simple rail shooters where you kill aliens and mutated humans, and both have the ability to use a light gun, the PS2 version is completely different. It's a first-person shooter, and your mission is to rescue a team of soldiers who went missing inside Area 51 while enduring the horrors of the secrets the government has hidden down there and live to tell the tale. So for those who decide to sit the real raid out, let's see what Midway thinks is hidden deep beneath the Nevada desert. We open with a camcorder and a lot of shifty-looking scientists. Oh, they finally got Miles Upsher's camcorder back from Mount Massive. A narration picks up talking about how science requires sacrifice and something about a pact. We're shown a scientist who's looking at old footage of aliens and talking about how the pact he spoke of will soon be broken. This is Dr. Cray, and he reminds me of Dr. Wernicke from Outlast, but he actually has hair. The opening cinematic continues with a group of soldiers in Doom-style armor going to investigate a quarantined area. They get attacked by a monster that remains mostly unseen for now. We then see one of the corpses of the dead soldiers reanimate with glowy eyes.
It was supposed to be a routine mission.
This is our playable character, Cole, and his hazmat team, who have been dispatched to Area 51 to contain the breach, and lists off everything the people were hoping to find during the raid.
Government conspiracies, secret weapon testing, aliens. I didn't believe any of it. Nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to encounter.
And the intro is still going. We get a montage of the soldiers suiting up. Welcome to Dreamland, it says. Dreamland? Heck yeah, they have great ribs. But the barbecue will have to wait. We finally take control of the game, and after we get our first gun, a pistol, we go through a basic tutorial. And here's where we have my absolute biggest gripe with the game. The control layout. They're not bad once you get used to them, but they're not like any shooter game that I've played before. I'm so used to the recon settings in Halo that it's just weird to me. R1 shoots the gun and R2 lets you aim down the sight. But you don't hold the button, you just press it once, otherwise it'll keep going in and out of scope. To melee attack, you press R3, which is push in the right joystick. L3 turns on your flashlight, circle and triangle alternate between weapons, square throws grenades, X reloads, the directional pad lets you lean left and right to peek around corners, and L1 jumps. Additionally, the crosshairs move too fast, and I don't know if I can adjust the look sensitivity. Again, I played the PS2 version, so I can't really compare it to the Xbox, but this is the weirdest setup for any shooter game that I've ever played. Earlier I mentioned the recon setup for the Halo games. With some of the later Halo games, you could choose preset button layouts. For the sake of the number of buttons in the layout, I'll compare the Xbox 360 controls to the PS2 controller. In the Recon setup, otherwise known as Halo 3 and ODST controls, it had a pretty tight-knit setup, with every major action-oriented button outside the gun itself being within quick reach of your right thumb. The right trigger shoots, left trigger either throws a grenade or shoots your left-hand weapon, right bumper reloads and is the action button, A jumps, B punches, and Y switches weapons. The D-pad, left bumper, and X button would often have different functions depending on the game, but these controls remain mostly the same from Halos 3 through 5. So the fire button being R1 I can live with because it's still the trigger finger position, but having L1 be jump instead of a button at the bottom of the controller, it just feels off. For a game where you carry more than 2 weapons at a time, I do think cycling between them with 2 separate buttons is a good idea. In GoldenEye, one of the most definitive console shooters, all you could do was cycle through your list of weapons with the next weapon button, so if you wanted to choose a weapon that's later down the list, you either have to wait till it comes up, or press start and scroll to it to select it, which does kind of disrupt the flow of gameplay. Again, that's my biggest gripe with the game, but for something as nitpicky as that to be the biggest flaw that I can find, I gotta say the rest of the game is actually pretty good. Now that I'm done rambling about the controller, how about we actually play the game? After the pistol, the next weapon you get is a scanner, which is used to pick up some of the game's databank, like blueprints, government documents, and video files. Health packs are these needles that look like they belong in the movie Reanimator, given the glowy green contents. After the training mission, the game begins with us hunting a mutated soldier who's been sabotaging the base. You only have the pistol at first, so be careful. I'm gonna admit, I don't know if you can actually shoot or beat him to death because I died once or twice fighting him until I accidentally shot some explosive barrels, and that killed him. Given the cinematic that plays and that the pistol is actually a pretty high-powered weapon, I'm gonna guess that you were supposed to blow up the barrels. After he dies, the mutant soldier dissolves into a puddle of glowstick juice. Afterwards, you regroup with your hazmat unit and head into the underground bunker. Your mission is to find Haz Team Delta, the group of soldiers from the intro, and the enemies here certainly don't make it easy for you. Now that we can actually get a good feel for the gameplay, I'd say that it feels kind of like Halo for the amount of buttons you use and the fact that you can punch while holding your gun, but it also has a bit of a GoldenEye or Perfect Dark feel, with the scanner being similar to some of the spy tech you use in those games, and when you dual wield, you have to pick up a gun that was made specifically for dual wielding, and both guns are controlled by the same trigger button. But it's not quite the same. In GoldenEye, you can alternate between right-handed or dual wielding if you had the gun for it, but in Area 51, once you have it, even if you switch weapons. Additionally, the offhand gun shares an ammo counter with the right-hand gun, and once it reaches 0, you only reload your main firearm. And, unlike Halo, you can throw grenades and keep dual wielding. Once you get a little further in, you'll encounter a scientist who goes into a horror movie style mutation and becomes a monster, but he's easily gunned down. When it comes to the so-called boss battles in the game, there aren't really that many and they're not super challenging, but then again, most shooters aren't known for their long and drawn-out boss battles. The dark areas of the game can become a bit bothersome on the console version because the flashlight doesn't reach very far and it's fixed to the end of your gun, meaning that if you're punching or reloading, then the light isn't straight in front of you and you can get ambushed. After you reroute the power and get the lights and communications working again, your buddy mechanic gets his head ripped off by a mutant. Looks like a boss fight! Dead. The rest of the game is pretty straightforward. Lots of gunfights, a little survival, and sometimes you get to use awesome super weapons like this turret. So satisfying. Later on, you encounter what are basically facehuggers. Most of the enemies are pretty basic, and only a handful of them are actually a real problem to fight, but you encounter most of those later in the game. There are also a few quirky moments, like this one where you have to use a hand ID scanner and you have to find a severed arm to use. As to be expected, things don't go so smoothly for your fire team, and you're the only survivor left. You end up having to put down one of your other buddies, Crispy, who underwent a mutation. It's at this point in the game where you actually have the shotgun. Rather than aiming down the sights, R2 makes you fire 2 shots at once, and when you dual wield, it's pretty devastating. You finally run into Has Team Delta, your entire reason for being down here, but sadly, even after one heck of a firefight, you get sabotaged by some Black Ops looking fellows, and your elevator escape ends up taking a tumble and you lose the last member of Delta Team. You yourself end up captured and mutated. And from here, it feels like you're playing a completely different game. The mutation adds a new layer of complexity to things, and you have to alternate between just standard gunfighting and using your new alien powers to traverse whatever situation comes your way. Also, there's this weird disembodied voice that keeps possessing corpses to talk to you and guide you throughout your mission. In mutant mode, melee attacks replenish your mutagen, and your long-range parasite attacks will restore health, but it does consume a lot of mutagen. If there are no enemies around, look for a glowy orange syringe, and it'll refill your mutagen. Or, just let it recharge on its own. Later on, you also unlock the Contagion ability, which does a crap load of damage, but it uses nearly all of your mutagen, so I only ever used it once or twice. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. For now, you're stuck in mutant mode, and the voice will tell you to find Dr. Cray, the scientist from the beginning of the game. You come across some decontamination chamber looking device, and it makes it to where you can switch between human and mutant by pushing up on the D-pad. Dr. Cray shows up on these folding monitors and tells you that you need to get to him. Yeah, we already know this. And you come across some creepy bald dudes who look like ambassadors for the Borg, and it seems like they're the ones behind the mutation outbreak. Sadly, before you can unload some much-needed justice into them, they simply teleport away. After surviving the monsters they sick on you, you find another TV screen and Dr. Cray tells you who they are.
Mr. Cole, the soldiers of the Illuminati are destroying the base.
Okay, for the record, when I made that Area 51 joke back during my G-Savior review when they mentioned the Illuminati, I hadn't actually played this game before. I was just making the reference for the sake of memes. Unfortunately, even though they call themselves the Illuminati, they don't have any mobile suits. Although after watching G-Savior, that might actually be a good thing. Eventually, you make it to Dr. Cray's lab, and he attempts to cure your mutation.
Every failure leads to success.
Then explain Dragon Ball Evolution. Cray has his strange talking assistant help you obtain the chemicals you need to reverse your mutation.
Yes, extraction bay. Do it now.
Your decontamination is interrupted, and the Illuminati breach the door to the lab, and Dr. Cray is killed in the explosion. They're after him because he originally was in on the whole conspiracy, but he broke the pact the Illuminati made with the aliens, and he's trying to stop them. It's from here you gain the ability to use the Contagion, if you're wondering. After escaping the lab, you finally get back in touch with your commanding officer, and he orders you to link up with other surviving soldiers, even though you never actually get to find them. After a puzzle involving a laser beam and a severed head to bypass this eye scanner, you'll come across one of the most annoying parts of the game for me. You have to hop across this UFO after fighting off the Black Ops soldiers from earlier, but there's also this wall-mounted gun turret that will kill you in seconds. It took me at least 30 minutes to figure out how to kill it, since sniping it didn't appear to hurt it very much. Then while I was just scooping around, I accidentally killed it with the pistol. At this point in the game, you'll have the sniper rifle, which isn't really anything special, besides being able to scope in with it. You can also have the alien BBG, which fires a 3-shot burst with ricochet potential, and the sight is a laser pointer that will show you trajectories and turn red if you target an enemy directly. It can't be reloaded, but it has an auto recharge. Also, the laser sight consumes energy, so be careful. You find an elevator that takes you up a level, and you come to my favorite part of the game. It's a production set for filming the moon landing. Okay, forget finding experimental weapons or clapping alien cheeks. This alone makes me wish I had gone to the Area 51 raid. Whether or not you buy into the conspiracy that the moon landing was fake, this is still pretty funny. The flag and the astronaut are cardboard cutouts, and the Earth is just a projection in the background, and there are also cameras and lights in place. Even if it is hilarious, this part of the game is frustrating given how many enemies there are. Also, the Black Ops guys can cloak now, and you can only see them in mutant mode, which takes some time to recharge. You eventually come across a human scientist who wants to help you out, and after he opens a path for you, you encounter what's called a Theta, a big mutant alien monster with a cannon for an arm. Besides him sicking his minions on you, he's not really that tough. Just keep running in circles around him and shooting him, and he'll die eventually. After that, you find a hovercraft that takes you deeper in.
The endgame begins, Ethan Cole.
The endgame, you say? Good thing I have the Infinity Stones.
The elites have labored for years to make me the grand experiment that feeds their weapon.
Elites? Maybe this is Halo. The voice tells you that the aliens captured by the government were used to breed this virus, and that he himself is the pinnacle of it all. You finally meet Edgar, the alien who's been possessing all those corpses this whole time, and he's actually voiced by Marilyn Manson. Edgar gives you some of his blood with the promise that it'll cure Cole's mutation, but it also binds him and Edgar together forever. Here's where we meet the Greys, the big-headed, bug-eyed aliens. They're pretty annoying because they have powerful shields that will kill you with one touch, and they can infinitely spawn Black Ops soldiers until they're killed. So that explains why the Black Ops troops bleed green. For those of you who only wanted to raid Area 51 to clap some alien cheeks, you might want to look elsewhere. Maybe the Orions from Star Trek? There's also this moment where you get to witness a human autopsy, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of unnerving when all these aliens just stop and then turn and look at you. Oh, I forgot. These are the most annoying enemies in the game. These bubble things. They follow you, and if you shoot one, it splits into 3, and they do a lot of damage if they touch you, and they're often hard to spot. They do a little more than stall you and make you waste your ammo, but they don't drop anything. From here on out, it's basically what you'd expect from a game about Area 51. Fight some aliens, kill a mutant monster or two, find this awesome alien energy cannon that shoots balls of lightning, destroy the core of the whole operation, and escape with a Metroid-style time limit. The game ends with Cole watching some energy tornadoes carve some crop circles and watching a truck that we saw at the beginning of the game leave, but we don't know where it goes from here. The game just kind of ends without a lot of fanfare. No end credits or anything. And that's Area 51 for PS2. Honestly, it's not that bad of a game, and I kind of wish I had played it when I was growing up. Aside from the somewhat clunky controls, the game is actually pretty dang fun, and it gives you the rush of a fast-paced shooter game as well as the spooks from a survival horror game. The gameplay is well put together, and the story is just evolved enough to keep you slightly invested, and I am interested in checking out the sequel, Area 51 Black Site, sometime in the future. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of glad that I decided to skip on the actual raid. If this game shows us one thing, it's that some secrets are best left buried. This has been Blade Cross EXE, part of Flash and Blaze Productions, with another Gogglehead review. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.